Ready? Mr. Anderson,
Here.
Mr. Failmetzger,
Here.
Mr. Johnson,
Here.
Mr. LaSalle,
Here.
Mr. Mahoney,
Here.
Mr. Meyer,
Here.
Betty Schaafsma is excused, and that's it.
Okay. Approval of the minutes. Did everybody have a chance to read through the minutes? If so, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Can
Second?
I'll second it.
I make a little minor edit in this? I meant to put in there that Mr. Mahoney arrived late. I mean, I realize he misunderstood the time, so I can correct that on the minutes and just show that he arrived at 6:45.
We adjourned at 7.
Well, you made it. I mean, and so that would be more accurate. So,
Okay, as amended, then do we have approval?
That's fine with the motion maker.
Okay,
I'll second it again.
all right. So we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Chair's report. I just wanted to thank everyone for all your work. Really appreciate the effort, taking time every month to be here and contribute, and it's great. Really pleased with the participation that we're seeing on the committee, so that's great. Also, Betty sends her greetings to everyone, and she, if you don't know, she had surgery on her foot, and so she's recuperating from that, and so she said by March she should be back ready to roll. So. Also, just wanted to recognize Fred Wallace for his tremendous work here on the committee, and due to a scheduling change, he had to step away from the TAC. So, but he is still active in the community and working on other things like the Oregon City Trail Alliance, and so we're happy to have his involvement. He brings a lot to the table. And then last of all, I just, most of you may not know him, but just wanted to give my respects to a good friend and someone who's a big part of our Oregon City community, and that is Mike McCarroll, who passed away on Tuesday the 29th. And he was the owner of Minuteman Press, but what a dear friend, and set the bar high for all of us. Just an incredible public servant, a community servant, and so just want to recognize him for that. And so, okay. Agenda analysis. Is there anything that needs to be added or subtracted from the agenda?
I have an item I'd like to add.
Okay.
I'd like to add the subject of an upcoming City Commission work session addressing the trolley and transportation issues. I think there should be TAC representation at that meeting, although they haven't scheduled it that I've been able to find.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Any other additions?
Can I just one thing that I wasn't sure where to place this topic, but I noticed as I was reading the minutes that Park Place emergency evacuation map was something that was suggested. We didn't bring it back in this packet, and I guess talking to Kathy about it, we were kind of that got on there with some kind of recollection, but not necessarily notes. So we want to go through that again, just to kind of make sure we understand what it is that we're being asked to provide, or maybe we're not asked to provide anything. Maybe that's something the committee wants to take on. So just we need to talk about that a little bit more, not a lot, just better understanding what that would be. And then I wanted to introduce Martin Montalvo, who's our operations manager, newly started as of 1st of February, and I'm just real happy he's here. It's real good to have someone. He comes to us from a county in Florida, and where he ran a road and stormwater operations group. So he's got lots of experience that we'll be able to tap into regularly, I think. So
Won't have to deal with alligators or up here.
No, just frostbite, something like that. Nothing I can't overcome.
Yeah.
So.
Anything to get away from those Miami Dolphins.
I'm not going to disagree with you there. Just the entire Miami area is not real popular with me. start with. So. Yeah, I'm a central North Florida guy.
All right. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Yep.
Glad to be here.
Okay, anything else to be added to the agenda? All right, well, we, looks like we do not have public comment, so let's move on to new business. First up on the agenda is TAC vacancies. And currently we have 2 vacancies open, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So this committee has a limit of 9 members, and there's 7 of you, including Betty. So it would make sense to try to recruit more. I don't know if this group has already found members that they'd like to recommend to the mayor, but that's, I think, we might suggest that one of you kind of take on that as a, as an initiative that you to seek out someone, or maybe talk to the mayor, have some coffee with the mayor, and figure out what if he knows of possible committee members. But that's not necessarily something staff would do, other than if we hear somebody that's interested, pass that along to you. And at this point, I've heard from somebody, but he doesn't live in the city. So that's one of the requirements.
That's mandatory.
That is mandatory.
Is it right?
Yeah.
Or be a business owner.
Oh, right. Or have a business, be a business owner
Business
of a business
owner.
that's in Oregon City.
It may be possible now that I own a business in Oregon City, that I could roll off of the Oregon City Chamber. Actually, it's representative, so that might open a spot on the chamber, or someone from the chamber.
That's true.
Yeah.
We don't have anybody from the chamber.
No,
Blaine.
Blaine.
Blaine is from the chamber. He's the chamber representative, but he's also a relatively new business owner in this inside the city limits. So
Yeah, that seems like that's a no-brainer.
Does anybody need help opening documents? Because I realize I don't think anybody ever opens. No, you're
Nope.
you're good
All right.
there. Opening documents on the screen, because we're supposed to become less paper dependent, and so if you want to, and I'm not even good about this. If you want to look at the staff report, you hit document, and then it's kind of annoying, but you have to open a couple things, and then you have to maximize it, and you have to use your fingers. But then when you're done with it, then you can exit out of it and go back to the agenda. So
hit this right here.
you hit. No, we're on that item.
Okay.
You
That's a good
can
subject,
hit
John,
that.
for a
Hit staff
workshop.
report document,
About an hour-long workshop for this thing here.
for the computer
and then
usage.
hit
For the planning
open.
commission too, as well. I sometimes sit here
Hit
and
open.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's open.
So you can open
Do
only
what the
open
guy
one
next to me is
document
doing.
at a time.
I know Nancy Ide and Katie Riggs would be
Okay,
very.
I had it up there.
Pardon me?
I know staff, the city
I
manager,
think you can
staff,
minimize
city
it,
recorder.
and,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
They'd be
I don't know
happy
how
to
to
provide that.
really
kind of-
Oh, is that
manipulate
right?
it very
Yeah.
well.
How'd you enlarge it?
You need to make it big.
The plus?
No, that'll,
I'll
No,
I'll
you just
bring that to
close
their
it.
attention though.
so now you need to go back to the agenda.
Yeah, because, it's,
Staff
You get all that,
report,
Bob?
document,
Yeah,
Man,
open,
at least this time I did.
and
Yeah,
then you
you're-
have to
you're-
maximize it by
you're
hitting,
smarter
The
than
one in the
average
middle?
bear.
yeah, the one in
square?
the middle.
Okay.
And then
Okay,
to go
I see.
back. I know.
Here we go.
I think, and then you hit agenda. So I think it gets easier with time.
Yeah,
I
probably.
just want to make sure.
Need a little
people-
stylus.
There you go. Yeah. Voice command.
I think you can have multiple documents open if you choose to. And to go back to the agenda, if you have to hit the X, and then you have to go down and hit agenda.
Cool.
All right.
That's your schooling for today.
that's it. Mr. Chairman, can
Yes.
I bring something up?
Yes.
John, it comes up quite a bit in land use hearings at the planning commission level. about the relationship between the city and the county regarding traffic. I mean, this is a big one. And we just sit there sort of scratching our head as what to do next. Because we don't have any jurisdiction in the county, and a lot of this stuff is enforcement. And then how to communicate that, effectively between the county and the planning commission, or the city and the county. And there doesn't seem to be any real serious working link that's effective. And I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but I'm just bringing this up to the committee here. It's an ongoing problem. We get people out there come up to the seat there, and they complain about something we have no jurisdiction over. And it does have a link with growth that we're responsible for, but it's frustrating, to both sides. So anyway.
So let me make sure I understand, because you said something. Enforcement is. Are we talking patrolling in and out, inside and outside the city,
Well,
or is this about capital improvements and long-term kind of planning, or?
I think it's everything. I think it's enforcement, I think it's growth, and I think everything sort of leads to traffic volume increase and traffic safety, because that's what I'm hearing from the public when they come up here. Why are you letting this happen? Because on the other side of the street, the county begins. And it's, I don't think there's any clear policy, working policy between, at least that's my feeling.
Well, and not only it's not only maybe a county issue, but also ODOT. Sometimes it's an ODOT issue.
Yeah.
But want to think about that and
So-
maybe put on the agenda for next
Local agency coordination?
Something like that, yeah. Policy coordinate, land use growth policy coordination or something. But I just get the feeling that sometimes their planning department may not be talking with our planning department and seeing how we can make things just a little smoother.
Okay. On continue with vacancies, I'd like to just affirm what you're saying, John. What you said about the possibility of someone in our committee taking a primary role or taking responsibility for recruiting individuals or bringing names before us. And so, with that, if there's someone who would like to take that responsibility, or if someone would recommend someone on the committee to do that, that would be good.
I'll take it if nobody has any objections,
Good.
other than my wife.
There you go. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that. But that doesn't absolve us, the rest of us, from if we have ideas. The other thing that was mentioned, and we may want to consider this, Betty was saying that she thought that even though the current bylaws state that you have to live within the city limits or have a business within the city limits, she thought it might be good to have representation from someone as an Oregon City address who's within the UGB, at least one position, to have that kind of representation on our committee. And so,
At large.
at large, yeah. So
Yeah.
we may want to consider that. That would give us a little bit more, additional representation and a larger pool to draw from.
So, haven't gone through the process of bylaw amendments. Is it, a lot of the committees are looking harder at their bylaws. Would it make sense to make that a homework assignment for the committee to kind of look at the bylaws, or have a subcommittee that kind of says, well, we want to tune this up, this is one area, or do we just want to take on that one piece and make, maybe have staff make the change and bring it back to you next week or next month? Does that make sense? Which
Comment. I've gone through the bylaws in great detail,
Okay.
and I think that the TAC is in pretty good shape
Okay.
as far as the way they're lined out, organized. We just have to be careful that we're following them as closely as we can, but I don't see any reason why we need to review the bylaws as a whole.
Okay.
Anybody else?
So then if we're talking specifically about this one issue in terms of qualifications for committee members, do you want us to mark that up and bring you a suggestion on what that would look like?
That would be,
I think that's a good idea. If we can make a motion, and so I'd move staff draft amendment.
second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Well, are we making a
Can I-
motion to do that now? Or
No,
discuss
To draft it.
To draft
Can-
it.
To draft it, okay.
Can we
Draft.
clarify?
I have a little feeling of opposition
Okay.
for that, because it was just mentioned by Bob that sometimes people bring things to us or the planning commission or whoever, whatever committee it may be, and then we find out that it's not in the city's jurisdiction. And if we have somebody on this committee that's actually outside of the city, I think we may be inviting more of that sort of thing. Will bring questions to us that we don't have the answer to or we can't respond to.
That's a legitimate concern.
Perhaps staff could, when they do the report, just do a list of pros and cons to get us thinking about what the balance would be between adding it and bringing in a new perspective, supposedly, or maybe bringing in things we can't deal with. So they just kind of list some pros and cons.
Yeah. A pro might be that person would be able to work, liaison on county issues even, or kind of go with what Robert was saying.
What about an advisory person, somebody that doesn't actually sit on the TAC, but could give us a little advice, ex officio type person that doesn't really have a vote, but just maybe give us some feedback, that would be invited to sit with us as a advisory person?
Well, we could make county, communication an agenda item and invite somebody from the county to one of our meetings. That's another option. I mean, staff are supposed to be here to help advise you on those kinds of issues, and some of them were well capable of doing that. Other ones we might need some support. But I think having someone at every meeting to help advise on city-county issues would be a big commitment, unless they are a member. And if they're a member and they're acting in volunteer capacity, then that would be, I think that's reasonable. The membership section is, I just want to make sure we're clear on this. We're talking about adding probably a subsection under the membership section of our bylaws, and what we're also talking about is including a criteria so that one of the 9 members could be outside the city. I heard outside the city but inside the UGB.
Correct.
Is that what we're asking? Outside the city but inside the UGB. Okay.
And is that restricted to resident or also available to a business that's outside the city but in the UGB?
I would say probably the same as it is for being inside a business with a qualified.
Just for clarification.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point.
The UGB at the time of appointment.
And that would be correct.
And is this a person, one member may be or one member shall be?
Well,
I would say maybe.
Maybe.
we
Yeah.
want to get some specifics, but we still need. You're not planning on writing this right now, are you, and delivering it
No,
tonight?
I just
Okay.
want to know.
Okay.
I would say maybe.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I would paint us into a corner here. Is this something that would be final with our approval, or does it have to go to the commission for?
I think bylaws are something that I think it's a resolution through the
Yeah, because they were enacted by resolution. And the composition of the committee was done by resolution.
By this committee or the city?
By the composition of the TAC was done by resolution.
Of the city.
City
commission.
council
Commission.
or commission. I think it's also useful to bring it back next month, because this was Betty's suggestion, and she ought to have the opportunity to
Yes.
discuss it after she gets a little of the pros and
Yeah,
cons.
yeah.
Okay, anything else on that? All right, let's move on to 6B, the STIP applications. Anybody have any, get a chance to read the letter in support that was drafted?
Yes?
Okay. And anything that we saw that needed to be added or subtracted from that? Make sure everybody's on. And John, can you just give us a reminder of what
Okay.
this is about? And
So the city submitted 2 STIP applications, one for Main Street for the next 5 blocks between 10th and 15th. And so it'd be a continuation of what we've done downtown for another 5 blocks. And I'm not going to remember the amounts, but it was like 2.6 million, I believe, is what the project costs were. And that was one application. The other application we submitted was the Malala Avenue project, and it was from Beaver Creek Road to Highway 213. And again, I don't remember the number, but I think it was 6.6 million. And both had different, I think the Main Street had a 10.7% match, and the other had something much more, 20, maybe 20% match. And we submitted both those, and the region received, that's not right, the state received 300 applications for $66 million, or $300 million worth of applications, and only $66 million worth to give away. And so early on in the review process, the request was made that those cities that have more than one project, that they submitted more than one project, provide them with a recommendation for which is our most preferred project. And we did that, and we suggested that Main Street was the most preferred project. We've got a lot of momentum going on down there. There's a lot of interest. It's definitely, both projects have a lot of benefit for our community. So the only thing because of my schedule, I hadn't spent a lot of time here. We provided that to the Clackamas County. So the people that are addressed in this: Paul Salvis, Donna Jordan, Joel Holloran, and Stephen Lashbrook. They were the group that asked us for our 150% list. You know, what or 50% list. So they wanted to make us cut our projects by half. And so the only thing that when I read this, I'm still feeling a little ownership for that Malala project, but I think the reality is we may not get it. So this list doesn't even speak, or this letter doesn't even speak to that Malala project, and I think that's probably okay given the reality of where the funding is. But I also think that Malala project is pretty important too. So this letter is really about providing the local selection committee with some another letter of support from this committee, which has never been provided. So that's where this letter came about. And
Blair, I have a quick question of John. Is a STIP funding cycle a one-year cycle or a multi-year? And if so, what? How many years?
it's a multi-year cycle. It's 15, 16, 17 years. So, but they go by. They also, so it's a 3-year cycle. They also have a July 1 to June 30 budget cycle. So it's, I think it's 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18 is actually the budget cycle.
So would we have another opportunity? When will we have the next opportunity to endorse one of our projects, like the Malala?
Well, we're working on a grant application for MTIP, which is Metro's Transportation Improvement Program, I think is what MTIP stands for. So that's due, that grant is due in, or that grant application is due in March. Not recalling the exact date, but we're working on that application where our plan is to submit for the Malala Avenue project. So there'll be another opportunity to get a letter of support. I don't recall if some of these, like the STIP, they weren't too interested in getting letters of support as part of the application package. But this isn't part of the application package, and we're sending it directly to our contingents. So our selection committee. Now, the MTIP app may want letters of support, so we may need to get something in front of you. If that's the case, if they do, we may need to get something in front of you pretty soon. Actually, that would be a good question to note, Kathy, so that we can ask Eric Morgren soon, because if we did need a letter, we'd have to probably get it in front of you, maybe even between, the two, this meeting and the March meeting.
With that information, I'm willing to make a motion that we support the letter and have our chairperson sign it, send it.
I'll second.
Okay, we've had a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. If you'll hand that down to Kathy, please. Okay, very good. Item 6C, McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Project.
Well, this is a short update that there's been a lot of activity on this with the Portland State University architects concepts, and they recently selected the best concept, but it was also made pretty clear that just about all of those concepts had something to offer that may or may not show up in a 50% design package. So we've kind of included this report for your information. It's fairly it's fairly recent information on the Portland State piece. There's continued to be work group meetings, which are comprised of some members from the CIC, and I think Bob, you're on that committee, aren't you? Or Robert?
Yeah, Mahoney is.
Okay. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, but this was really just an update to keep it fresh in your mind.
Covered it pretty well. I'm amazed at how many people have got their oar in the water and stirring the chili, and something's going to happen down there sooner or later. Just I go by there every day, and it just it needs some tender loving care.
Some of those students put together pretty astounding presentations. That could be a thing of beauty down there.
It could be. It could be. I was reminded that there's not you see all those beautiful concepts, and our budget for architectural treatments, if you will, which is kind of what we saw in some of those, wasn't large. But on the other hand, I know the community's interested in seeing more of that. So it may be provisions for those kind of architectural treatments to, maybe be added later. Incorporate some of those, maybe build the foundation for that in the future. I'm curious to see where that's really going to play out, because the budget's tight on that, and there's I want to say a couple $100,000 for architectural treatments that include kind of creating that entryway.
I've got one suggestion. If we could just mail a letter to ODOT and ask them kindly if they'd keep their grass mowed, that interchange. Once that thing is mowed, it looks just 100 times better. It really does. And when it's not, it's just an eyesore. But the geese love it.
Put a water feature in there for the geese.
Yeah. Oh, boy. They keep it well manicured.
I keep thinking of that sign in Reno that goes, Reno, the great big letters, biggest little city in the world, start of Oregon City.
There you go.
Are you talking at the interchange?
Yeah. Just you look to the left as you go underneath the bridge there, the 205 bridge. That's a lot of grass, but if they kept that maintained, it really would look nice, because it looks terrible when it's not.
Okay. Let's see. Any other on that item?
I have a quick question, Blaine, of John.
I'm sorry.
Got a quick question. Talking to one of the student teams, they made a comment about the fact that ODOT had some, I'll use the term regulations, about having large trees planted along the edge of that McLaughlin improvement, because apparently limbs fall off in the bicycle paths and things of that nature. And I hadn't heard that before. One of the prominent things on McLaughlin are those redwoods down in Eastmoreland there, in that area. But apparently there may be some requirements that if you have bike lanes there, they don't mix well with big trees with limbs hanging over that drop off. I don't know. Is that something you're familiar with?
Well, I think normally what we hear from those, I want to just point out ODOT, because I don't think they're the only ones, just roadway designers, if you will, have concerns about trees that aren't columnar. So if you know your trees, I don't know a lot about trees, but I know the difference. So a columnar tree grows pretty much like straight up, as opposed to something that lays down much more. So some of your heritage trees might, get, limbs that lay pretty flat and end up out in the travel lane and are problematic for trucks. Or if they're not, we see this problem on some of our street trees and some of our smaller boulevards where we've got bicyclists, and if you're on a bicycle and you're tall, you definitely could use about 9 feet of clearance. So especially when those trees are young, trying to get property owners to limb them in a way that doesn't, top them necessarily, but keeps them trained. We're trying to do that on a lot of our boulevard trees as well, especially where we've got bike lanes. But that's more of the concern, I think, than limbs falling. It's really just trying to prevent, a broad tree from the 99 East, also well known for not the redwoods, but you go a little further, and I'm thinking those are maples. I could be wrong. That are down beyond Milwaukee, or on the north end of Milwaukee. Cover that section of 99E. They're beautiful. It's like driving through a cave almost. But those are set back a long ways, and they have they're old enough now to where they've been trimmed up. But every once in a while, you'll see limbs fall out of those, and I know that's probably not ODOT's preference. They'd much rather have nothing there, but I think they're open to those. In our case, we've just got such a narrow right-of-way to work within. Trying to plant anything other than a columnar tree that's not going to impact bikes and trucks is.
Thanks.
I just don't want to see the view blocked when you drive by.
That's another thing. I mean, we've heard from them that you've got all this directional signage that's just just down the road from, if we're talking about entering Oregon City from Gladstone, and you've got all this directional signage that people need to have enough time. Especially, it's not the regulars that they're trying to reach. It's the newcomers that are just coming into Oregon City that need to get to 205, and they want to make sure there's clear sight distances for that signage. And so That's another concern, because there's some median trees planted in there as well. So, Scott, did I miss anything from ODOT's perspective on trees? I know you've probably dealt with that issue before.
No.
Okay, then, moving on to item 6D, South End Concept Plan, Community Advisory Team.
Well, unfortunately, I didn't make the January 23rd meeting as my mother-in-law passed away that morning. So, but I did get some information over the email that we're now into the divisions and values. We've done the part of figuring out what's there right now. Now we're going to go from there. And some of the items that they brought up was the core values of South End is it's got a rural character, and it's this is what they envision. It's a very livable. The houses are safe, attractive, family friendly. They have a sense of place where the South End residents respect the unique culture and history of the area. And the environmental quality, they care deeply for their streams, trees, clean air and water, other natural features which are existing there now. And then, of course, the excellent schools. They want to support high-quality educational systems in that area. And, of course, they've only got the one school, McLaughlin Elementary. There is going to be an open house or community workshop on February 27th from 6:30 to 9 at McLaughlin Elementary School, and that's located at 19230 South End Road. And refreshments will be provided.
I'll be there.
So there's an incentive for you, by golly.
What date? What was the date?
That's Wednesday, February 27th. And it's, again, a participatory project that most of us on the committee will be at workstations explaining different parts of the South End plan and taking suggestions.
What time?
Time is from 6:30 to 9 p.m. 6:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. So if you can get there, it's the last one we had was a huge turnout. Well over 100 people showed up, so we were very pleased. John, were you at that last meeting?
I was not.
Okay. So you don't know any more than I do.
I don't know too much more. I can't recall if Eric Wargren, him and I kind of, since I live out there, I'm pretty interested in it. But just because of other commitments, I haven't been able to get to those. In fact, I'm not going to be able to get to the one on the 27th either, so I'll try to check with Eric to make sure he can be there. And I don't know if Martin can get there, but it'd be a good way for him to learn a little bit more about South End area, that's for sure.
Yeah, it'd be great. It's an interesting process. Like I said before, I'm optimistic about it.
Okay, any other comments on the South End concept plan? Okay, moving on to 6E, South End Road speed zone application.
Yeah. Just to give you guys an update on this, a few months ago you guys had requested that we contact ODOT to do a speed zone evaluation along the South End corridor, basically beginning at Parrish and ending at Partlow. Well, the request was sent over to ODOT, and their engineers got an opportunity to take a look at it. During the evaluation process, he realized, after completing the report and sending it back to his counterparts in Salem for a review, he omitted a section of the road, 0.12 miles of roadway, basically starting at Parrish and then continuing back up to Warner Parrott Road. So he's gone back out and reevaluated that section, added it to his original study, but it's going to add about 3 weeks to the timeline for a report completion and then resubmittal to us for review. So we don't have the results back for you, but we anticipate them probably in the next 30 days. We'll get the preliminaries in, take a look at them, make our comments, reviews, get it back to the state. Should have something for you probably by your next meeting.
All right.
Okay? Sorry for the delay.
Yep, understandable. street lighting along Anchor Way.
So we're just keeping this one on. We've been talking about. This item started with a request that we get a street light at Anchor Way and Redland Road, which is more in the county than in the city. But we were looking at it and we recognize that it is dark there, and so we asked PG to look at that. And I think what I reported last time was transformer would be required, which is a pretty steep expense, over $2,000. And so we're taking this in small bites and gonna get and in doing that, we've asked PGE to install 3 lights on existing poles along Anchor Way. So it stops short of the bridge before you get to Redland, but
one pole space.
One pole space from the intersection, but it should do a lot to illuminate Anchor Way, which has got no lights on it. So
Especially if somebody's walking there, you don't see them.
yeah, walking on that stretch of road
I wouldn't.
is probably not the best thing to do anyway. But so we'll see that it's in PGE's hands. It's a work that they're planning to do. Hopefully by the next meeting we'll have streetlights there. So I recommend each of you take that route on your way to this meeting. Maybe it'll probably be dark still.
It lights it up pretty good.
They're not in yet.
Yeah, 3 of them are running there right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's
That's a scary street in the daylight.
really. So the report I got was that they were working on it. So okay,
But if it,
they must have worked on it.
well, see, like that one light is one pole before the intersection. And I was looking at the intersection pole. If you go towards
Redland.
not Redland, the other way, there's a transformer, one pole space back that Comcast uses to run their equipment. So there's just one pole space each way for power for that pole.
Yeah,
But it does look good.
it's better. That's good.
It's been up running for over a week.
Okay. Well, I haven't been out there.
So everybody go home,
Yeah.
up to the hospital and then come back down.
Yeah.
John, does PGE or the city have a master street lighting plan, or is it just by referral or request?
We don't have a master street lighting plan, and
Would that be our responsibility or PGE's?
well, PGE will put in any lights that we ask them to put in. It really just raises our monthly, power or street light bill. Any new subdivisions, obviously they get new street lighting based on a current street lighting standard. Any of the old stuff, especially as we annex in properties, that's probably one of the benefits of being in the city is, as those come up and as people suggest, we typically add them in. But no, we don't have a plan. For instance, I talked to somebody here recently that wants more or suggested we put in more street lighting along 6th, which is between the elevator entrance and Carnegie. And based on the fact that we've talked a little bit about putting in more pedestrian crossings, striped pedestrian crossings along that, I think that's a reasonable request. So often they'll come to me and I'll evaluate them, use Martin at this point. In the past it's been Kevin, kind of evaluate whether that's the right thing to do. And until I hear much pushback, streetlights are funded out of your general fund. So that's not a budget I manage, but I'm pretty quick to spend it if So at this point, I haven't heard from the city manager who oversees that general fund that there's concern with that, but that could become a problem if we added a bunch of streetlights. One thing that we are doing, though, that's going to be helpful is PG is in the process of replacing the high-pressure sodium lamps to LEDs. So any of the Cobra, what the Cobra, when I call them Cobra heads, they're basically the ones that mount to the pole and they come out and they kind of look like a Cobra head. So PG is in the process of converting all of those high-pressure sodiums to LED lights. So that'll be a difference that you may notice. So, but we don't have a street light plan.
Quick, are the sodiums the orange-looking ones and the LEDs the white-looking ones when they're on?
Well, LEDs are typically more white.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you can get the
Like
LEDs
this
in
out
any
there.
color.
Yeah.
So you will see some yellow LEDs. A lot of the makers make LEDs in yellow because of that aesthetic value. People like the yellow sodium lights. But the older ones, they're just sodium because that was the technology at the time.
Yeah.
So there are remnants sitting out there.
The parking lot's LED out here.
Okay.
Main Street's LED.
It's significantly cheaper to operate. Maintenance-wise, are a lot easier. It's where everybody's going. It's LED.
Okay. 6G, Malala Avenue signal improvements.
So we've been working with Clackamas County. This is a good example of how we work with Clackamas County, Robert. Just so you know, we do try to work with them pretty regularly. They do all our signal maintenance and our striping. And they've been recommending for years that we look at some signal upgrades along Malala Avenue so that we can better communicate with their kind of main control center. And the signal technology has changed from what we have on those, so they're going to the latest controller that's available through that's being installed in the state. And so that some of that work has happened. We've included that in your package. Malala at Claremont is complete. Maybe by the time the emails came through, it's possible that Malala and Gaffney are complete. I haven't been out there to confirm that, but they're basically, first of all, replacing the computer that controls the signal, and it provides them a little bit better functionality. Definitely helps with their ability to communicate from one signal to the next. They're also replacing the pedestrian buttons and signal heads to be, the latest with regard to ADA access. And, I don't believe these are countdowns, but they might be. But anyway, they talk about PED-friendly logic, and they're audible for someone who's blind that might want an audible signal at a pedestrian button. So not a new intersection, but definitely some upgrades to that signalization, and it's in a plan of improvements that we have along Malala Avenue. It includes they've asked us about Beaver Creek Road and Warner Milne. So we're just using our street fund, and we've got about $40,000 in our street fund that's kind of allocated for this kind of improvement. So we're spending that using county forces to do it. So it's a low-cost way of doing it. We don't have to develop plans, or we don't have to develop a bid package. It's just they go in and they take care of that stuff for us. And
So does that, they cover the labor, or the 40,000 covers labor?
they invoice us for their labor.
Okay.
Yeah,
Doesn't hurt to ask.
they're good guys, but
Yeah, not that good.
they still charge us.
Yeah.
Quick question here. You call it upgrade. Does that mean there's actually a percentage improvement in traffic flow on those two intersections then because of the new computer work?
There definitely will be. The other, I might have not stated this, but those intersections will get the new flashing yellow,
Flashing yellow.
Right.
Fred Meyer's
permissive,
just got
so
it.
they'll permit the left turn when oncoming traffic still has the green. So
Boy, you got to be careful with those babies. You really got to be observant.
yeah. You need to pay attention when
You
you're
really
driving.
do.
don't you?
Yeah.
I see a lot of people cut in front of me too. So.
Yeah, I've had a couple people
At Beaver
dash.
Creek.
It's like,
Well, statistically, with the protected permissive yellows, you get a 25% decrease in accident rates that you have at the intersections. So hopefully that'll be the end result that we start seeing at those two particular intersections.
It seems like you're avoiding the stopping of the main traffic for that left turn would improve traffic flow on the main road because they can go on a flashing yellow.
Yeah. Any any turn pocket that is so busy that it backs out onto the through travel lane, it should help those. Now, in peak hour on Malala, I'm not sure how well it's going to help. But, and, you know, we've got the same, this intersection that's not listed here is Glen Oak Road, and we've been working with ODOT at Glen Oak Road and Highway 213 on getting that permissive yellow. And, you know, again, there in peak hours, there's just so much through traffic, there's not a lot of brakes for that left turn to be able to make the movement. But, between the controller, between the flashing yellow, it's our belief that we'll see more efficiencies in vehicle movements. The PED-activated signal upgrades don't necessarily move traffic any better, but they should be safer for pedestrians. The other thing that the 2070 controller provides is the programming capability, so that if a pedestrian hits that button and is there waiting to walk, that flashing yellow signal won't allow for that permissive left turn, because what that basically is saying is, well, there's a pedestrian in the way and I don't want to turn there, so it won't allow that movement to happen. The old controllers didn't have that kind of functionality, so it's all around. It's all good stuff. We're doing it in a cost-effective way, and I think other than the kind of concern for those flashing yellows and how people kind of learn to live with them, which is another topic that we're here to talk about. But they're good. They're a good thing for the city.
We're going to need Denver barn dance signals.
Denver barn dance.
You ever been to Denver and walking downtown? If you wanted to go this way on an intersection, this way, or you can go to the middle.
Oh yeah.
There's one light. All traffic stops.
Yeah, I've seen those.
And you stand there and you say, "Shall I walk this way? Shall I walk this way? Or shall I go straight?" And you can go diagonal right across the other corner.
They've got
I saw that in.
New York City has that.
Yeah, they allow those in New York City.
Yeah, I saw it in San Diego too, down in the, I think they call it the gas lamp district.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just saw that on my trip.
A lot of times they'll make a hatch mark all the way across the whole intersection to.
That's no, you're not getting that in Oregon City.
Well, in Denver, it was called barn dance because I think it was Governor Barnes brought it to their attention. He wanted it because it's cold and they want to get across it.
Yeah.
Quickly.
Interesting.
So I've got a question.
Okay.
John, this new technology, we pay for it for the county to install it, but do they maintain it? Let's see if it breaks down, who goes out to fix it?
The county is under we have an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas County to maintain our signals. So each month we get a bill from Clackamas County for signal maintenance, and they provide detailed invoices that show which signal as intersection they've worked on, and the amount of man hours that were there, and if they had a truck there. So sometimes that bill lags a little bit, but
It always comes.
It always comes. It always comes. And I guess the only challenge we have is it's a little bit hard to monitor because we haven't asked them, and I don't think it warrants a phone call to tell Martin or Kevin, hey, we're working on this particular signal. We're using their judgment on a lot of that. They are the experts. They do that for a lot of other cities. And
Well, I was concerned mainly about the possibility of having to train your people on the new technology, but that won't be necessary.
no, we don't have a signal technician on staff. Some cities do. They'll hire an electrician who's also certified in signal maintenance or signal programming or signal wiring, those kind of things. We don't. And we found it more economical for us to just contract with the county for those services.
And we get two different types of services. There's preventative maintenance that comes through that, so they're hitting certain areas, certain periods. And then there's on-demand work. So if we know that we're having a particular issue, we can contact the county and have them rectify that area. And annually, just for curiosity, we're spending about $80,000 in annual maintenance through the county to maintain all the signal heads in the city. It's a relatively good value that we're getting out of that.
Well, while you're talking about county maintenance and striping, the striping there at Redland Road and 213 needs to be restriped. You can't hardly see it, some of those stripings in the rain. It's a terrible job.
In the news section?
Yeah, where they put the new right turn lane, some of those are quite visible, but some of them you can't hardly see.
We'll have to check on that.
Yeah.
Redland
I just-
Road and 213?
Yes, I just thought about that.
Well, just to defend the county didn't do that. That piece of striping was done as part of the project. So that's, the good news is we, I think, I'm recalling this, and I may be recalling it incorrectly, but there is a fair amount of striping on that jug handle project that was, they weren't able to complete because of weather. And I don't know if that's what we're talking about here, but I'll ask Alita to, well, I think now Eric Wargren's trying to finish that project up, but we'll want to, I wouldn't doubt it if that's what you're seeing is work that's yet to be completed because we got into the fall rains.
I wouldn't be surprised either.
Yeah.
Okay, any more discussion on that item? Okay, moving on to the transit bus station and pedestrian safety and bus parking.
So,
That was an issue that Bob, I think that was you that brought that up.
Yes,
and,
it was.
so this is kind of why I thought maybe we'd pull up that screen. I think Bob and I connected sometime this month to confirm what he was talking about, but we can bring it up on the screen if Kathy will drop it, or actually you guys all have monitors.
Yeah, we can just
of
do
it,
our
so
monitors.
Other than Martin won't be able to see it. This is our old system. I've already forgotten how to use it. I couldn't get the new one to come up, or I couldn't find it on her. So, let me window in just a little bit more. So this area here is our transit center. That's a little kiosk right there. Kentucky Fried Chicken sits right here, correct?
Yes, right.
And the bus parking area, this concrete area here, that was built when they built the transit center for bus traffic and bus parking. The concern, I think, is that when a bus parks right here, if you're headed south on Main Street in a vehicle, your ability to see a pedestrian crossing Main Street is impaired because that you got that massive bus sitting right there. Is that
Right.
correct, Bob?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the question is what's a better solution for that? And Bob, I haven't put much thought into this, so I'm not going to.
Well, shame upon you.
I'm not going to. I'm not going to jump out there with a bunch of solutions on the fly. I guess we need to confirm that that's what you were talking about first of all, and then from there, if you're asking staff to come up with some solutions, I'd like to offer that I think we can do that. We just had, David Fraser and I just had lunch with TriMet on kind of some busing issues around the city. This could be one of those. I have a feeling it's going to, because of their limitations on bus parking options, they don't have any really, and yet this transit center is used pretty heavily.
Well, they can park a bus further back there.
They could do that.
And even 10 or 15
They
feet
park here.
would give you
They park
a little bit of reaction time if a pedestrian walked out into that
Just close it.
crosswalk in front of the bus.
Come across.
Yeah.
But the way it is now, their bumper is right at the crosswalk.
Yeah.
No.
piece that I don't necessarily understand is whether or not, the length of that bus and where its tailgate would sit, whether it's more than one bus. I don't know those details yet. Or, if the plan is for storage for 2 buses along there, then that might put them right up against the driveway entrance for Kentucky Fried Chicken. And so I haven't, like I said, I haven't studied it too much. Whether there's an option for moving the crosswalk, that might be another option. I just
That's what I was thinking, because do the
Oh,
buses,
yeah, that
do the
could
buses
be, yeah.
park here? No, I don't think so.
It parks right there
Right there in front of the kiosk? In
Yeah,
front
they
of the-
do.
No,
Because if they didn't park, that would be the best place to
yeah.
put it and just block it off with it.
Well, even
Put
if
the
they
barricade.
did park there, that would still be at the back of the bus,
Yeah.
not in front of the bus.
Right.
Yeah.
And put a barricade on the sidewalk saying this is closed crosswalk.
Signaling would be another option.
Like I said, I go there most every Friday morning. My timing is about 5 minutes to 10. And every single time I've gone there, there's been that bus parked there, but I've only seen one bus. I've never seen 2 in a row parked there. But, I can't say that's not always the case.
Well, I think all those ideas are good. I haven't put enough energy, and maybe Martin, and maybe you can take a look at that too, and we can have a conversation with TriMet and see what they can do. They're usually very accommodating. They're good to work with. They recognize that their transit center isn't as big as they'd like it to be. One of the pieces of our STIP grant application includes this transit area. There's actually some thoughts that maybe we could expand that just a little bit to include a little bit better options for the bus parking. Because we anticipate increased use of that transit center location as the city continues to grow, and as we continue to see people that need transit options.
You work with operations when you deal with things like this, John?
Right.
Those are the people you work with?
Yes. Yeah. Well, if you mean like parking buses and moving,
Yeah.
that we do. We would work with more of their planning group on the concept or on the plan for the boulevard improvements. Actually, we'd work with the operations people too, just like any other project.
Some of those people coming off those buses, I mean, they're on their phones, they're on their Twitter, they're on their this and that. The last thing they think about is people driving. They challenge you. They really do.
They do.
Okay, anything else on that item? So we'll have a report next month.
We'll work on a report for you.
Okay, moving on to the next item. We have Bob, in going through the bylaws, noticed that there are several items that we're tasked to do as a committee. And one of those is to make an annual report to the City Commission. And so John put together a list of, that report would include achievements and other such things. And John put together a list. And so I haven't had a chance to go through these item by item, but I did want to note that Bob also has a list. I don't know if he sent you his list or not of some of the achievements.
Actually, you keep giving me credit for work I didn't do, and I'd love to take credit for it. But Kathy did the work on this one, and I don't know if she's got Bob's list or not.
No, she
and
doesn't.
and there's not there's no reason why this list has to be approved today. I would guess I'd share that as well. The city commission, what I heard from the city commission was they would like an annual report from each of the committees, whether it be the planning committee or transportation committee or natural resource committee, at least once a year. So this is a great draft, and that's what it says on it.
Yes.
This is a draft. So it would probably make sense to a subcommittee or something that reviews this, adds to it, and gets that information back to us. We'll complete it, and then you figure out a meeting time on the city commission that it would make sense for somebody from the committee to present that to the city commission.
Yeah, and my guess is that everything on Bob's list is probably includes a very extensive list, so.
I don't know. Bob's got lots of details in there. He might have something new.
Well, I was able to go through this draft, and it has most everything that I had picked up on,
Okay.
with a few little extras, as a matter of fact. Way to go. But the only one thing that I would like to have added is that we've had several discussions about downtown parking. Several discussions about that.
I have it on there
I don't-
somewhere.
Did I miss it if you have it on there?
Yeah, I think I remember reading
Just
it.
before,
It's on the first page.
heard from citizens and provided input on the status of parking in downtown Oregon City. It's the
But
second
you
to the
can-
last bullet, but we can
You
amend that.
can
if
beef
you
it up.
No.
I think that's what I would
Yeah,
I'd recommend that, each of you look that over and
Oh, I missed that. Okay, yeah.
I had a question. The 2013 goals, are they goals rolled over from 2012? And I don't know that we've had an opportunity to discuss those. Here we are, the second meeting in February of 2013, so these come from some list.
They pretty much came from, I just went through all the agenda packets, the minutes, and just kind of put this together. The last time an annual report was done, I believe, was in 2009. And so.
We're staying right on top of things then, huh?
Well, yeah. I could take the blame.
Well.
Most of the blame. But, so, those are just things I put on there.
Okay, so I think if we're going to go one more meeting and give it some thought, we may want to think
Exactly.
about the 2013 goals.
You only got this tonight.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all good with everything that's happening. I agree, John. I'd like to see something on the goals about working with the Oregon City Trail Alliance and for bike and ped path and trails and so on. So.
Well, I believe that in the TAC bylaws, we're tasked to establish goals that enhance and augment those of the city commission. And the city commission has just completed their goals, I think, for the next biennium. So
2 years.
2 years, yeah. So we would not have had a chance to respond to their
Correct.
goals yet.
So if are those in draft form yet? The city
They
commission?
are.
So if you email those to us, we could be looking at that at the same time we're looking at this in preparation for the next meeting.
And I would also like to suggest, Bob did a lot of work in putting together this. It goes through each of the goals and suggests ways that we might be able to, items that we might be able to tie into, and so I'll make that one, John, to take a look at. But if you could send that to the rest of us, or if you want to email it to me, and I can mail it to the committee
Okay,
members.
yeah, I'll do that. Because I've gone through all the goals that the city commission has established in January and tried to match up our goals with theirs, how we support their goals. For example, I'll just give one, is the Cove project. Goal one, implementing economic development strategy and maintain an environment for success. Item A was the Cove project. And my example was we would assign a TAC member to keep abreast of transportation as the cove is planned and would ask appropriate questions, and then the TAC to make recommendations. So we would have one person on our committee assigned to that particular project.
I like, you know what I like about that goal, and we often create these goals that are hard to kind of figure out, you know, what they, you know, how to measure that. So that those specific goals, measurable goals, you know, sometimes goals look like those are a little kind of hard to follow. You know, with those goals comes all their their secondary, you know, list
Objectives.
of objectives that they want to do.
They want to improve
So they're, you know, they're
pedestrian safety.
yeah.
So, okay.
But I mean, with this committee, it would be helpful to staff, I think, to actually have something a little more measurable and something that we can actually kind of strive to reach, and you know, and so that would be helpful too.
Well, there are some of those goals that we wouldn't be able to support at all, like Goal 2, address critical facility needs. The library, well, what can the TAC do, anything to support the library? We can't, that I can think of. So there are some things we could help support, some things not.
So can we have drafts of this also emailed to us to work on? That'd be great. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'll get this to you, Kathy.
I don't know if Robert wants to look at that. Okay, so then on the March agenda, we'll all have, come with a list of goals.
Very good.
Okay, good work. Pedestrian crossings, number 6J.
We passed the.
No, they're on track.
Getting the hang of this.
Where did we cover the flashing yellow?
The flashing yellow was on the street or Mole Avenue signal improvements. 6G.
Okay.
This
Cover
is
that
an
too.
informational item.
Detail with it.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine.
Were you going to review this, or is it just informational?
No, I think just trying to catch up here a minute. So.
The flashing yellow extra material is earlier with that other agenda item.
It was the Malala Avenue question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
This is the Kittleson presentation.
So this is something that I read this email probably 4 months after it was sent to me, and it had this attachment to it, and I just was cleaning out email and found it, and it was quite interesting for me to go through and read.
Excuse me for a second. You're at the Malala Avenue.
No,
Flashing yellow?
I'm on track with the pedestrian crossings.
6J.
6J.
Okay.
6J. Sorry. So Kittleson Associates is one of a couple of leading traffic engineers in the region, and international firm. Armanis is one of the people pictured there, and we communicate with him pretty regularly on some of our crossing concerns. And in fact, 7th, there's been a couple of requests for crossings, one at John Adams near the Carnegie, and the other further up the hill. So when I saw this, it was good timing, because we had planned to kind of meet with our supplier on those pedestrian activated flashing signals that you see in other agencies that we're looking at as well. And I invited Armanis out to look at 7th and kind of just give me some feedback, and he was kind enough to do that. But at the same time, I thought, here's some pretty good information. He offered, he said, I'd be happy to, provide a summary version of this for your TAC if needed. And I don't know that you'll need that. This is pretty detailed, but I just thought it would be good information for you to have and consider. And you'll become the expert and remind me of these facts when we make a mistake, I'm sure, but we don't make those too often. So yeah, that's why that's there. And
Okay.
May I make a
Sure.
statement?
Yep, jump in.
John, I like the way that you people in traffic and engineering talk to each other. We planners don't. I mean, it's one up on the bat. But you guys do a good job in talking to each other. I'm impressed with that. And I'm going to tell the planning commission how impressed I am. I wish planners would communicate a little bit more about land use and growth and development and stuff like that.
It's usually related that we're underfunded, so none of us want to reinvent the wheel, and we steal and plagiarize from one another as much as possible.
That's good. I like that.
I do too. That's I've always gone by that.
Can I write that down?
Sure. Steal and plagiarize that as
Put
much
that
as
in my notebook.
I knew there was corruption in our city.
Remember, school is the only place where you'll really get in trouble for plagiarism.
Okay, anything more on that item? All right then, moving on to 6K then, election of officers. And last month we had nominations, and I was nominated as the chair, and Steve was nominated as the vice chair. And Betty was very sweet, by the way, to call and reassure me that she's completely fine with the way things are. So the nominations as they stand. So very great attitude.
Well, I'd move we accept those nominations and cast a unanimous ballot for this year's officers.
I second.
Okay. What is the procedure? Is it just call for a vote?
I better read my bylaws.
Yep. Well, we have a slate before us, and so it would just be a matter of approving the slate.
Right.
So, if there are no objections, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. And I would like to add that one of the things that we thought would be good, given, and I don't know if this would come under job titles. Steve, I haven't talked to you about this, but one of the things I'd like to suggest is that the vice chair be responsible for managing the bylaws, if you will. In other words, really kind of owning those. And there's also one of the things that Bob had put together, which I'd like to suggest that we adopt. It's essentially a calendar of those things that annually the bylaws require us to do, and just to have that to where you would remind us from month to month what's coming up. And I mean, I completely missed the election process, and it would just be great to have someone responsible for managing that. So I'll give that to you. And I don't know that we need to necessarily make a motion or anything to that, but
Sounds good to me.
sound good
Yeah, it's a
agreement on
great
that?
idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good idea.
Steve, you're
Okay.
so
I'm not like, I'm not Joe Biden.
there you go. Okay. We had a couple of additions to the agenda. One was can't read my own writing.
Park Place emergency evacuation map.
There
I
you
just
go.
want to confirm. I guess I confirm what we were talking about. That conversation came out of this concern that the new Washington Street was not outside the floodplain. So as it dips under 213, at that point it would flood, and under high water conditions. So then, how best can the Park Place neighborhood, or for that matter, how best can Oregon City get to Park Place and vice versa, create a bit of a plan that would be shared mostly with Park Place. So a couple of questions that I had when Kathy and I were talking this is, you talked about sharing it with the Park Place in a newsletter format, or so that was a question. I don't know exactly what the Park Place neighborhood sends out and whether we need to meet that format. and then just kind of reaffirming what we were talking about with regard to a map. So, John, you probably know the most because you were talking about this, I think.
Well, I think Bob's on the strategic,
I'm on the
Steering
steering
committee,
committee.
there we go.
Yeah, and we actually are having a general meeting next Monday. And then we have another general meeting in May. And we could distribute that information to as many people that are in attendance at those, well, probably not next Monday's meeting, you wouldn't have time to respond, but at least the one in May. But also, we could, if you had a map, excuse me, we could post it at Steve's Market, which is the local market where we post all of our agendas and meeting notices also. We used to have a newsletter, very extensive newsletter, the best one in the city. However, the person that put that together for us has decided not to do that any longer. He got tired. And we put a request out for somebody to take his place, and nobody came forward. So now we're, instead of a newsletter, we're using the postcard to announce our general meetings. So there wouldn't be any room in that to put that information.
Do you have a web page?
Yes, we do.
You could attach it to that.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah,
Very good idea.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
So, Bob, do you think something in an 8.5 by 11 format is what we're talking about for the meeting distribution, and maybe something a little larger for a poster at Steve's
Well,
Market?
no, I think an 8.5 by 11 would be appropriate in both places, because Steve's Market, their bulletin board is inundated with all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's a typical bulletin board nobody really reads. But when we come up with a general meeting announcement and the agenda for that, they post it in their front swinging doors at the very entrance, eye level, so it would be very visible. But I think anything larger than an 8.5 by 11, they might resist because it is on a glass door.
I think the electronic copy sent to the website with a, access, click on this and,
PDF.
yeah.
But there's also a lot of people in that area that are low, very, very, very low income. What they call that, Clackamas Heights or whatever it's called up there. And many of those people would not have access to a computer, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of elderly people don't either. So I think that, like Katie Riggs brought up at a CIC meeting not too long ago, we want to use as many communication devices as we can to keep as many people informed as we can, and not reduce it to just email.
Bob,
Yeah.
is it, there's a housing authority there, and a lot of those people are in housing authority facilities, so they may have a way to get the word out, or maybe they can just do door hangers or flyers or something like that.
I've talked to the person that is in charge of that, and she tells me that the communications with those people is very, very difficult. Yeah.
Does TriMet go up there?
Yes, they go.
Yeah.
Well, they go twice a day.
They go up Holcomb though.
It's
But
it's
still.
very minimal.
But if there was a flood, there'd be no bus service. And a lot of those people don't have cars.
Yeah.
Well, we'll work on a map,
Okay.
and we've got the format. Distribution is yet to be determined, but if we know what you're, so when we know a little bit more about what you're asking for.
I'm retired, so I'll just stay home.
There's your canoe.
Yeah, right.
Right. Okay, there was another, unless there's anything else on that item, there was an additional item about city committee work session for the trolley.
Yes, I'm, as you all probably know, very interested in getting more efficient use of the trolley and possibly using it for transporting employees from downtown Oregon City to and from the parking lot at the end of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center as a means of opening up parking spaces for retail customers downtown. And to be very honest, I haven't had a lot of support from staff. We've asked on a couple of different occasions to have a report from the traffic division, I think, that controls the trolleys, and they've been a little bit resistant to stepping out of the box and having a further use of the trolley that they already are, and they've said that the funding comes from downtown and that's the only thing the trolley is used for. Well, I've looked up the map, and it goes a lot further out of than downtown Oregon City, for sure. Now, they've decided to address that issue at the next commission work session, and I don't know if what would be appropriate for us, the TAC, to draft a letter to the City Commission to strongly support that issue, or whether we could ask that one of our TAC members sit actively during that discussion and be allowed to actively speak, because usually at work sessions, they kind of restrict the public speaking. Does anybody else have any ideas on that?
I would like to, and I'm trying to think if we've had that before, but it would be interesting to see a presentation on the current use of the trolley and how it's being used and what the budget is and what the city's goals are for it or vision for it. I mean, if the staff are finding that that's not really effective and want to, phase it out, or are they wanting to increase it? One of the things that some of you may know that I was given approval by the Urban Renewal Commission to look at opening a cycle cafe, a bicycle bistro kind of a thing down at the train depot. And so I'm working on a formal business plan, and the concept there would be like a marketplace, sort of like an indoor Saturday market. So vendors from Oregon City would come and put products and services. People would come in. So we today had a conversation with a fellow who said, wouldn't it be great if we could use the trolley, every 20 minutes or so, shuttling back and forth to downtown Oregon City. So that may tie into what you're talking about in terms of using that for parking down at the Interpretive Center. But I'd like to see what their ideas are for the trolley as they stand.
Yeah, because we've been told, or at least I've been told, that they're working on a shuttle of some kind system, but we've never been told here at the TAC anything about what their possible plans are, what their ideas are. We haven't been asked for any input on the shuttle. It's just kind of like a black hole out there.
Sucking up money, huh?
So just a little bit of a preview. So you acknowledge that the trolley is managed through our police department and the code enforcement group. So and the trolley program for many years has been funded through downtown parking, and the code enforcement and that parking group hasn't always been in the police department. Years ago it was in Public Works, then it went to the parking, went to Community Services Parks group, and now it's with police. And each one of those groups has struggled with the affordability of the trolley program. There's 3 trolleys, and they're very, they're expensive to purchase, and they're expensive to maintain with the drivers and based on the ridership that we have on those. Whether it be, we've done all kinds of routes and over the years, up to the hilltop and down, and just focused right on Main Street and, you know, out to the end of the Oregon Trail has always been part of that. With the museums, we got fair ridership, but it never really hasn't penciled out. And I think Mike Conrad and his group have done a good job of kind of looking harder at that and trying to figure out, you know, the next trolley season. Typically, that's only happened for 70 days out of the year. The trolleys run for 70 days out of the year. Some of that's got to do with the type of vehicles that they are. They're just not really built for winter weather conditions, and they're more of a tourism piece. They've kind of got a fanciful look to them. So all that's coming together, Bob, and I hear what you're saying. This has been a long-standing issue, and to some degree, some people will feel like, or some staff maybe feel like, yeah, it's been talked to death. Others not so much. But what I understand is coming before the City Commission is a proposal, and this came up a little bit at their goal setting, which is that the trolleys just they don't pencil, and that's not to say that there shouldn't be a shuttle program, and they would like to convert our current trolley program into something more like a shuttle program that would do exactly what you're asking. A shuttle service that would be a vehicle that's more, this is what I think is coming, I guess. I haven't seen their presentation either, and I don't know exactly what they're working on, but what I've heard is, you know, they're thinking of some shuttle service or vehicle that would be more aligned with the kinds of pedestrian loads that they have, or that they, you know, that are even projected for in the future. Just storing those trolleys, I don't remember the numbers, but it's pretty high, and I think per rider it's like $10 per rider, and you know that's really what it's costing the city based on the numbers, and it's just not sustainable. So they're going to bring that information, I hope, to the work session and talk about that openly with the City Commission. You're right about those work sessions, but I have yet to be to a work session that they don't allow the community to speak at, unless it's become a real controversial one and they're really trying to control that. But I don't anticipate that with this trolley program or this trolley work session. So I would suggest, I don't know, I'm thinking of options just to ensure that you're going to be able to speak to that if the committee wants to do that. Maybe.
So perhaps we could just have a request that have a representative from our committee present our, I'll call it concerns at this point, or suggestions at that meeting. So they'd actually have a little agenda line item that said report from the TAC, and then Bob or whomever we have do it could do it. I mean,
We can do that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea, frankly. It opens up lines of communication.
I mean, then they know going in that they're going to hear from us, not just having somebody show up at the meeting. And they also know that we as a whole are aware that we have a representative there speaking for us. It's just not Bob there because he's picked up this item and nobody else has.
Well, and I just think, you know, City Commission, the mayor in particular, is pretty proud of the committee work that's come out of our committees, and so to not allow that to happen, I think they would probably allow that to happen even on the fly. But I think we'll let them know that that's the plan, and so don't let me forget that one, Kathy.
So how about if we kind of make it official? It might be easier for you to sell that then. We pass a motion that we request at the work session meeting that they have an agenda item for appearance of a TAC committee rep. So I'd make a motion to that effect. Somebody can modify it if they want. But
You have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Robert seconds. Any discussion? Call for the.
But just, I don't know that we have to have it real structured. I would recommend that Bob be the one that be there and just say, you know, this is something that we actually had a presentation from the, well, I guess the trolley operator and here some time ago, explaining it to a degree, I think along with some of the other parking requirements. But at any rate, it's something we've been following, and you can pass our thoughts and concerns on.
Yeah. Very good. So, any other discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor?
I
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, well, I think that, if I'm not mistaken, that just about covers our agenda for the evening.
Good job.
Anything else for the good of the order?
Yes, I did have one.
I got one.
Oh, two.
You go first.
Oh, I just wondered, you gave us this map last time about the one-way streets. When we're going to talk about that? 15th and 14th.
15th and 14th.
I see some.
You're right, I did give that to you.
Yes.
I see some problems. Like getting out of town and going south, you have to go down the 12th or further down to get on McLaughlin Boulevard. And if you got a Pepsi truck or a Coke truck or a beer truck, with a trailer, there's a lot of snaking through town. You know, you have to go up 15th and turn on, make a left on Main and then go down and make another right. You know,
So have we got enough time to have this as a formal agenda item next meeting? Or is going to be action on this sooner than that?
No, I believe we have more than enough time. There's planning commission meetings coming up and joint planning commission, city commission meetings coming up. And this was a concept that was kind of provided for us by DKS as a one solution. And so I think there's definitely plenty of time. But I do agree that the TAC, and we talked about the TAC, what was the right time for the TAC to actually
Put our oar in the water.
yes, and provide more official kind of support or not for the transportation system plan. So this would be, one item on there, and we probably ought to think about dedicating more time to that topic soon.
I concur.
Yeah. So why don't we add that to the agenda for March, and we'll come up with a decision on recommendation on this, formal recommendation.
I wonder, we could have DKS. Well, what does this committee envision them doing in preparation for that meeting? Or there's been a fair amount of presentations on the TSP in the past. So, have you guys thought much about? Has anybody looked at the draft? It's online now, available for review. The new draft TSP, or it's got all the attachments to it. It's a big document. I get that. Do we want to have?
I'm going blind.
Do we want to have DKS show up to provide one more kind of overview of what's in the TSP? Or do we want
Section
more,
11
do we want
still
more focus?
the summary of all the projects? Was that Section 11?
Section 11.
I have it printed. I don't have it. I don't recall the section, but it was one of the later. It's either 9 or 11.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If there have been changes in that, I think it would be useful for us to have copies of that sent to us or available to us, because that is the best concise summary of the whole thing.
Okay.
Has that been updated then?
There's also the
online?
summary. So there's a volume 1, which is kind of it wraps. You remember all those tech memos, right?
Yes.
So the appendix is basically all those tech memos. So the appendix is like 300 pages.
Ooh.
And that's volume 2. Volume 1 is got it summarizes all those tech memos into and I want to say that's maybe 50 pages, and it includes the funded and unfunded list of projects. I can't remember if it was this
And it does
this
have
committee
a time
wanted
schedule?
this. I don't remember if it was this committee or the one of the TSP working group committees that wanted, the dollar amounts of each project listed
Yeah.
as well. That doesn't show up in the summary. It shows up in the appendix
Okay.
document or the volume 2 document. So anyway, there's a lot of content there. We could probably have them go through the volume 1 and address, whether it's tech memo number 9 or number 11, where the meat of that report is. Bring that to us as well as this couplet thing, and just kind of have that available for discussion. Does that work?
What would work for me?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Did you get all that, Kathy?
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Thanks for the emailing of the 2012 pavement improvement projects in 2013. Appreciated that. Bob and I shared coffee and poured over them.
All right, Robert?
I think I'm going to withdraw my
Okay.
comments there. Premature.
All right. Okay, then, without any further ado, thank you everyone for your work tonight. Appreciate it. Meeting adjourned.
Tell you one thing, I thought we'd be here later than this.
Yeah, I did too.
That long list of stuff.
Moving right along.
Yeah.